Hey guys, I'm here on my kitchen floor because I have to say I'm sorry. Oh, this is working. I want to make sure that it gets my tears. Okay. I'm sorry. Or maybe not. Alright. That's enough of that. Okay. Well, hello. Welcome back, or whatever. I've been trying to make this video, or I guess I've been working on this video since last year, however long that's been, so 7 years. I feel bad having not released it earlier, but at the same time, I know it's about something that doesn't get any less relevant. In fact, it might even be more relevant now than it was when I was first working on this. Although, I don't know, it's been relevant for a while. So obviously, from the title of the video, I want to be talking about the artificiality of apology, fault, and forgiveness. What I mean by artificiality is that these are constructed concepts. These are, specifically in this case, or in these cases, words that we use to describe things that are really complex and that aren't always the same. For example, when you say cry, right? Like someone was crying. All that means is that, there's water coming from their eye. We know what it means, but there's so many different types of crying. Some people might call this semantics, but I really think that it's important that we understand how our understandings of apology and fault and forgiveness might be skewed by language, but also just skewed by our intuition and the way that our hunches about some things are really wrong. And that's the role of being a reflecting individual, is to catch yourself on those things that you do wrong and then to not do them. By the end of the video, what I'm going to try to do is rank apology, fault, and forgiveness from least to most artificial. So it starts with the one that is most real as far as like a tangible thing, or the word that we use or the words that we use actually have some type of correlation with a human behavior that it can accurately describe, or that just what we describe when we use this word actually exists. As we move down there's only 3, so it shouldn't be too hard to follow, but it'll start with the one that's most real and then end with the one that's most artificial. So, I guess I'll just get right into it. The first concept, I guess, I want to talk about today is apology. And I think this one is going to be the most obvious out of any of the 3 that I talk about today. Why I'm talking about it? Because YouTuber apologies, political, like politician apologies, apologies from your friends. Apologies are things that humans have to face, that we've been facing for a very long time, that we will always face. And yet, it's not like a science yet. People don't handle it like you'd think that we do it all the time. So what I want to do first, when we're talking about apology, just to put us on the map somewhere, is to start with the etymology of apology. Kind of a fun little rhyme. But basically, the word origin. What does apology actually mean? Apology comes from Greek, which starts with apo, which means away, and logio, which means speech. So obviously away speech if you just put it together, but it's defined as a speech in one's own defense. Now I think the use of the word defense here is really important, because I think this is one of the examples where the origins of the word actually are not what we mean. That's what a lot of people do when they apologize, is they defend their actions, they defend their problematic behavior. But that's not what a lot of people want or imply when they apologize or when they ask for an apology. So first of all, I just want to say that when most people mean an apology, they do not want you to defend your actions. They've clearly already deemed that whatever has happened was harmful or irresponsible or whatever it may be. So attempting to justify your reasoning or whatever, or even, a speech in one's own defense means that even afterwards, even after someone has stated that you have harmed them, you're saying, no, I haven't. Or even if you say, well, I didn't mean to, you're somehow implying, because my intention wasn't to harm you, then you just shouldn't be harmed, or it's negated, or I have no responsibility in this because you were harmed just by like the universe as a buffer between you and I didn't actually harm you. You were just there being harmed, and it happened to be me that did it. That doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm trying to define apology on my own, but it's based on a couple of definitions that I pulled from the internet. So I'm not saying with this definition or the definitions I give in the rest of the video that they are purely mine. They're most likely paraphrasing of definitions I've read online, but I think that combinations of them, or just presenting them, just talking about their definitions is important. So when I say apology, I actually mean two things. And I think that beyond I mean it, I think this is what most people mean when they mean apology. There's two elements to it. There's actually there's like two and a half, I suppose. And I think maybe people don't usually separate the two, but they are different. So the first component of an apology is a regretful acknowledgement of an offense or failure. Now, failure will come into play later. I think fault could be used there. I think a regretful acknowledgement of an offense or fault. Most people would say that follows, but once we get to fault, we might understand why fault is less tangible and individual than we think it is. Now, the second component of an apology is a genuine and measurable change in attitude and behavior that excludes any relevant problematic traits and a pledge to work towards such change. Now, I think a true apology, an actual apology, is both of these. I actually think a real apology starts with number two. You start with realizing what you've done harmed someone or was wrong. And if you have, empathy and humility, you're likely to, when you make this realization, think, I feel really bad. I feel super bad because I now realized what I was doing when I thought I was doing something else. Or maybe you actually thought that you were doing the thing and you were just being impulsive. But the first part of an apology is an emotional, is an internal, no one sees it. Or, they might see you emote it, but it starts with an internal state of realizing you fucked up. You did something wrong. And a regretful acknowledgement of it should follow. It should follow that you realize you've done something wrong and you express verbally, physically, whatever, I realized I've done something wrong. Wow, that was awful. I'm super sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. A lot of people just do the first part. They express, they acknowledge, oh yeah, I did this thing. But if it's ever followed by but, it reverts to the original speech of one's own defense, which I think at this point we all agree we're not looking for. Please, skip it. Save your breath, okay? Thank you very much. But that's the problem with a lot of apologies. With a lot of apologies you get personally, and with YouTuber apologies. And, with the way that you'll get people that sit on their bathroom or kitchen floor, and they start crying right away, and they don't really acknowledge anything, or they acknowledge it but deflect it, or justify it with some stupid shit, or they show up and start doing their fucking makeup after soliciting sexual content from minors. I don't know. Not what they're fucking supposed to be doing, okay? But what they do this, oh, well, I'm sorry? Question mark? I guess I'm sorry. I'm sorry you were offended. That's a good one. But they're defending themselves. A true apology, I think, and again, I know this is strange that we're going against the origin of the word, but a true apology now is realizing you fucked up, expressing you fucked up, and then following through with that change so that you no longer do or are that fucked up thing or trait. Should be pretty straightforward. Now, I'd like to move on to fault. Fault, I had to kind of bounce around to find definitions again, but I also have two definitions here, but I don't know, they tie into each other. It's not so much like apology where I think there's two distinct components. I just want to give two definitions here that I think kind of complement each other. The first definition is responsibility for an accident or harmful event. And the second definition is a problematic feature in something, particularly a person's character. So this can be like, fault lines in the mantle or the crust of the earth or whatever. I'm not a geologist, I don't know. Or, when your house has a crack in the wall, you could say that's a fault, or yeah, something like that. I like that it says particularly in a person's character, because when we say fault, we usually mean a person, a human being. An individual thinking entity, and also that they've done something problematic or wrong, or they are responsible for something terrible or something just a little bit bad, but that's the point. Now, I think there's something implied in this first definition that makes fault dangerous. When it says responsibility for an accident or harmful event, I think there's a soul or individual right there. I think they're saying sole responsibility. I think it's almost trying to imply the harmful thing, the harm of the situation originated in whoever is deemed responsible in this case. Now, here's an example. Let's do a mind, what do they call it? A thought experiment. Let's imagine that you have, you see a child toddler go up to another toddler and punch them and take their toy that they were playing with. And someone asks you, who's at fault here? Like, what happened here? Who's at fault? You'd say, well, this kid came up and punched this other kid, took his toy, took their toy. I'm trying to be gender neutral. Obviously, it's their fault. I mean, I saw it happen. I know what went down. It was their fault. Okay. What if you learn now that that child has, fetal alcohol syndrome disorder? Now whose fault is it? Are you going to blame the parents? Are you going to say, well, they were irresponsible and drinking when they were pregnant? Okay. What if you find out now the mother is a victim of intergenerational trauma and has PTSD? Okay. Is that her fault? So whose fault is it actually that this kid was violent towards this other kid? It's that kid's problem. They have to deal with the fact that they have violent tendencies or whatever. But now whose fault was it that this kid hit this other kid? Maybe someone that lived generations ago, someone that is long dead. It can be reduced, not infinitely backwards, but think about it this way and you'll realize that fault is a lot less tangible and measurable than you might think it is. So I just want to make it clear that fault does not equal sole or individual responsibility. That's not how this works. Now, lastly, I'd like to talk about forgiveness. Again, apology and forgiveness and fault, I think they all go together. Forgiveness has sometimes irked me, I suppose. I just feel like sometimes people forgive you from this sense of superiority. They're not actually saying I forgive you. They're saying this is okay because I know that I'm above you. Or I don't expect much from you because, I mean, this is what you are. You're a lower whatever. Or forgiveness is, oh yeah, this is fine. Just as long as you acknowledge that I'll hold this over you forever. Maybe even beyond what is justifiable for what you've done to me, for what I'm forgiving you for. I do think forgiveness is something worth looking at. My definition for forgiveness is the process by which a victim of a harmful act or event pardons whoever or whatever caused it. The reason I'm making this whoever or whatever is because I think that you might not use the word forgive, but I think you can forgive inanimate objects or the world or just fate. You know, you can just come to terms with the fact that something terrible has happened. But I think that is actually the core of it, is you just come to terms with it. Forgiveness isn't holding something over anybody. Forgiveness isn't a religious elitism or a trade or some type of contract to be able to press someone for something that they've done, a mistake that they've made. I don't think that's what forgiveness is. I think forgiveness is sucking it up, telling someone, I'm going to suck this up, but as long as you change. And I think that's the case. Even maybe if someone doesn't change. There are some people that are really mature, that are really stoic, and that say, you know what, even though you haven't changed, and I know you won't change, I forgive you. I understand that you can't help yourself for whatever reason. You know, I'm a bigger person. I can see through this. I forgive you, even though you might still cause transgressions towards me, whatever. But to me, forgiveness is complicated by fault. Now, the end of this says, forgiveness is when you pardon whoever or whatever caused a harmful act or event. So in other words, who is at fault? Now, I hope I've just made a good enough case that you won't think that fault can be easily deduced. So who do you forgive for something? Right? If again, going back to the example of the kid punching another kid, do you forgive the kid? Do you forgive the parents of the kid in this specific case? Who caused it? Because if you can't tell who caused it, then who's the target of the forgiveness or the subject of the forgiveness? It's unclear. So I think forgiveness is real, but it's kind of brought down a bit by fault. I think that the whole pardoning someone or something for harm that they've done to you, I think that's real. I think people can genuinely get over things. But I think the whoever or whatever caused it or harmed you thing is complicated by fault. So finally, if I were to rank apology, fault, and forgiveness from least to most artificial, it would be apology being the most real, then it would be forgiveness being the second most real or in the middle, and then it would be fault being least real, most artificial. Like I said, I think that forgiveness being in the middle is mostly in the middle because of fault, because it's tied to fault. But I should also mention that apology being at the top, I'm not saying apology is super tangible or very real. It still has this dimension of artificiality, because it's a word, because human language and whatever, but also because, I mean, the fact that I think what we mean when we mean apology, when we say apology, is not the origin of the word. So it's a little hard to pin down. But I still think that the acknowledgement, like realizing you've done something wrong, feeling bad, and having an internal behavioral change that either occurs wholly at that moment or begins at that moment and ends later. But it's that change of behavior is real. And that's the real part of an apology. And obviously, I also think that the part of expressing that you feel bad or expressing you realize that you've done something wrong, that is also real. Humans express things. I mean, we are the social animal, basically. So of course we would want to express or emote this internal change. But the problem with apology is when there is no internal change. When you have individuals that I don't want to name because the list is very long, but I know that everyone watching this can think of several influencers, people in our lives, politicians, whoever, that signal to everyone else that they've had these internal changes, that they feel bad about things, and that they're going to change, and that they'll stop, and they don't. And you know that they have no intention. Every time they upload a 1-hour apology video with 20 ad rolls on it saying, oh, I'm so sorry, and then continue to do the same thing. The next year, they'll be found of doing the same thing that they apologized for. But all they do is they put up these videos, firstly, to pacify the mobs. Because they'll say, well, look, they apologized. There it is. And that empty, shallow action that they know they're doing just to pacify people is passed off as a genuine change. When I say we, I'm using the grand we. I mean the global human community. We all have to make an effort to hold problematic influencers, people, politicians responsible for shitty apologies firstly, but also hold them accountable for what they've done and let them know we are attentively waiting for them to grow the fuck up, to be better people. We need to stop supporting people that don't know how to apologize, that don't know how to stop being problematic, because it's going to bleed into young and impressionable people. Some people are impressionable and they're not very young, and they're going to learn that apologizing is this way of creating drama or this deflection tactic, and we're going to get more fucked up than we already are now. So it's everyone's responsibility. Apologize better. Don't just hold these other people accountable. You, me, apologize better. Forgive better. Realize that fault doesn't exist nearly as much as you think it does. So basically what I'm trying to say is when you're apologizing, when you're forgiving, or when you're receiving or witnessing an apology or forgiveness, just think about what's going on. Think about how real what you're hearing is, and try to be a better person, and try to hold people responsible that they need to try to be better people too. And thanks for watching.